I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. We can please start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. Okay, next we will perform our consent agenda. Ms. Skank, will you be presenting that?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes of February 15th, 2022, to receive and file the Board and Commission minutes of the Cemetery Board, April the 20th, 2022, and the Board of Health, July 12th, 2022, to confirm the promotional appointment of Dennis Jordan to the position of Police Sergeant in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, to confirm the appointment of Tyler Roselle to the position of Firefighter-Paramedic in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire, to receive and file an oath of office for Gabriela Rodriguez, and to proclaim August 18th, 2022, Never Give Up Day.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Okay, well, I assume all the police are here to talk about the hill development. They might be wrong, so. Chief, would you like to take us away at a pinning ceremony?
Can I have Officer Jordan step up here? This is going to be fun. Denny and I go way back. I started in 1997, and shortly after that, Officer Jordan was hired on in 99. Came from St. Paris. He graduated from Graham High School. If you're not familiar with Graham, they're known for wrestling. So when we were partners and actually trained in different tactics, he got to throw me around a little bit. So that was quite enjoyable for him. He went on to Urbana University. He has his major in social services and a minor in law enforcement. He attended Sinclair Police Academy, and then he went on to Narcotics and Special Investigative Unit. He was an FTO, and he was part of Honor Guard. Denny and I were partners for years. We went to narcotics together, and then we kind of took different paths. I went through the promotional process, and Denny really found his niche in life. He became a canine officer after leaving narcotics, and he had Ajax in 2007, he had Gunner in 2009, and now he has CODA. He's really taken the canine program to new heights. He became an instructor, and he's really excelled at that. He was actually U.S. PCA Region 5 Catch of the Month in 2010. Jordan Nakota received the Valor Award of North America Police Work Dog Association Conference in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, for the apprehension of a homicide suspect, that Officer Jordan was actually injured, and I hear it a lot that he took a bullet for me. So I hear this on a regular basis. Denny has several commendations, Medal of Honor. These are different makers, outstanding performance. In every profession, you have those informal leaders, those leaders that others look to, that others respect, that others go to for question, and Denny's one of those. A lot of the young guys look up to him. Denny's a little bit older than some, and these young guys, he still outworks, outtrains, and he really gives them a guidance. So you have to understand my shock when he came to me last year and said, hey, I want to take the sergeant's test. And I was a bit shocked because he never had an interest in that. But he actually saw that some of the younger officers needed some guidance. And I tell you what, I couldn't be happier. Denny was in my wedding. I believe that was the first night him and Holly had their first date, so Holly thanks me constantly for that. So, but I tell you what, when you come to someone that everybody looks up to, it is Denny, and I couldn't be prouder of the advancements he made, and I look forward to what he can bring this department. Who's going to pin the badge? It's not the old ones, Holly.
Denny. Yep. Thanks, sir.
It's exciting to see good people take on leadership roles in our city, and we're really proud of him.
I think the best part of it was, you asked, or the chief asked if Holly was excited. And when I talked to Holly, his wife, outside, she goes, yeah, he goes to 311s. I get to stay on days, so I have some free time. See you, Holly.
Great. Okay, are we ready for citizen comments then? Sounds good. All right, it looks like we've got 8 citizen comment cards this evening. Everyone has a limit of 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Don't forget, an extra minute. All right, so I'm going to just say the first individual, and then I'll say the second one so that the next person can be prepared to speak. So first we have John Hayda, followed by Marty Kohler. And please state your name and address for the record when you come up to the dais. Thank you.
My name is John Hayda. I'm a resident of Middletown, Highlands Historic District, 16 Alameda Circle. I taught at Miami University, Middletown for many years. Okay, so we're now in the middle of August, and we still have the D.R. Horton proposal before us. It's been dragged out a bit. I would say that even council members seemed somewhat worn down at the last meeting, what with having to go back over familiar ground once again. There seemed to be fewer questions, and new ideas as to how to proceed seemed to be in short supply. So anyway, what's left to consider at this hour? D.R. Horton still wants to crowd 44 or more houses onto a 16 or 17 acre lot that could very well be just as hazardous to build on as it was in all the years since the hospital moved. After all, was there not a study that came out at the time of the hospital's move concluding that no residential construction should ever be pursued for that property? So how do we proceed when parking, traffic, and lot-sized issues block discussion of larger concerns, issues we're losing sight of as this long process reaches its conclusion? Sorry, I'm losing my place here. One issue is reducing the number of homes from 52 to 44, but this hasn't changed the terms of the debate very much. And it's still hard to imagine what life would be like in and around the subdivision once all of the homes are built and, let's say, most are occupied. At least with some of the recent developments we've seen, like the proposed new town mall and Spooky Nook and so on, we get multiple three-dimensional artistic renderings to give us a sense of what's in store. But with this project, we've only got the two-dimensional outlines, and it's a little hard to picture what is in store for us. Another issue involves the marketing of the subdivision. Lot sizes might be small, but the homes themselves are large and enough to command prices projected to be from $350,000 to $450,000. Is this affordable housing? Is it right for this particular market? And if there are prices, more affordable homes in the area might be more appealing. A third larger issue is the one that just won't go away. As much as promoters of this legislation would like it to, put simply, it would be hard to find another 16 or 17 acres anywhere in the city that would be more worrisome or dangerous to build on than this location. Certainly others have covered this issue well enough. I leave it to you to weigh the import of this and the other larger issues I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Marty Kohler, followed by Chris Lacey.
Hi, I'm Marty Kohler, 508 South Main Street. I've spoken to you before about the Hill development and the design of it, and my comments still stand on that, but my current objection is to the financial subsidy that is being proposed by City Council in the form of tap fee waivers. If you're intending to add insult to injury to the neighbors impacted by this development, this will accomplish it. Tap fees represent a real cost to the city of Middletown. They're the cost to the city for the added capacity that is required for this particular development on the utility system. If the developer does not pay this cost, it'll be charged to the citizens of Middletown in the form of higher water and sewer bills, which are already among the highest in the region. City Council is not responsible for subsidizing or padding the profit margin of private developers. Residential developments are a cost burden for the city. No city in the region provides financial incentives for residential developments. It's simply not good business for the city. Financial incentives should be reserved for commercial or industrial projects that provide good paying jobs for the city. Please vote no on this proposal. I also object to the $16 million purchase of Town Mall. I don't see that on the agenda that was handed out, but it was on the online agenda. The city has a really poor track record when it comes to property ownership. The private developer, if the private developer needs gap financing, there's much better ways to accomplish this. Without firm private commitment for investment, the prospects of using TIF funds is highly speculative. Just look at Liberty Center, which is already in financial difficulty, and the developer cannot pay the property taxes need to cover the TIF payments. They've appealed multiple times to the county to lower the valuation, which also usurps the TIF payments for that project. This financial incentive may be a short-term success, but it needs to be structured for long-term success. If a development is to be TIF'd, please consider doing the D.R. Horton development as a TIF, so at least we get some financial revenue off of that particular development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I make a comment? He's right. The Town Mall Galleria did not appear on this agenda because I made a mistake and I printed the wrong version of the agenda. So the agenda that's out on the website is correct. The agenda that should be on the PowerPoint is correct, and I printed the wrong one to bring down here tonight. So it's just a mistake on my part. The Town Mall Galleria is on the agenda for tonight and will be ready for your vote. But that's just I printed the wrong
So
thing
if
you brought
anyone's
down.
sitting in the audience and the only time you've seen the agenda is the one you picked up in the front, you can go to cityofmiddletown.org on your phone right now. At the top, go to Government, City
And I'll
Council.
be happy to run upstairs and print the correct agenda, if you like. I'll be happy to do that.
I mean, yeah, if you'd like to print a few of them, I guess there might be some people in the audience who would like them.
Yeah, I can send it to the chief. That would be great.
Good teamwork.
Sorry, I was certainly not intended.
Okay, next up for citizen comments, we have Chris Lacey. Followed by, I think, Peter Amatali. Is that right?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and I'm actually not wearing sunglasses tonight. So I've been in front of you all before, and obviously I'm in staunch opposition to the.
Can you state your name and address? For
Oh,
the
I'm
record?
sorry, Chris Lacey, 142 Euclid Street.
Thank you.
I'm vehemently opposed to the several iterations, but obviously now the D.R. Horton proposal. I'm against the quality of product. I'm against the density, and my biggest concern has to do with parking. Obviously, when we had the hospital there, and I was born there, and I'm sure most people here in this room were, relative to the size of the parcel, they had a large parking lot to accommodate parking with 44 homes, which came down from 52 to 50, which again, as I mentioned last meeting, we were told it could never go below 50. Parking is my big concern. So I know everyone here tonight has a big job in front of them. How are we going to look at this project and move forward? I would offer up to you all, I would like to see the land be developed with really nice townhomes. My big concern is, we call it the Hill Project. And D.R. Horton actually told us last week, and has said prior to that they're going to build new homes along Florence. They're going to lower it, from my hillbilly view, 20, 25 feet down to Florence. What's going to happen to the view? The reason that I'm a big proponent of townhomes is I would like to see us maybe be able to enhance the density of the property, but also keep the integrity of that beautiful hill and the view, which I cherished as a kid, again, I'm a lifelong resident. So let's be honest, what is this project really about when it gets down to brass tacks? It's about money. It's about money. So is it what's best for the neighborhood? Is it what's best for the city? Or is it about dollars and cents? As Mr. Kohler mentioned earlier, we're sitting here tonight talking about waiving tap-in fees. So and I think the builder mentioned in the last meeting, we really need those tap-in fees. So if it ultimately has come down to that, how could it be on that shoestring of a budget? I just, again, I'm opposed to it, and I think what council should do, and I encourage each of one of you here tonight to do, I think that we should vote no. I think that we should, I called it 3 R's in my notes. We should reboot, we should reevaluate, and we should redevelop the piece of property in the correct and proper way that's best for the neighborhood and is best for the city, not what's driving the best profit margin. I have a big issue, obviously, with the quality of product. And the last thing I'll say, there have been a lot of development projects before councils in years past, some good, many not so good. It's 2022, we're heading into 2023 with a new council, it's a new era. The city of Middletown deserves better, and the neighborhood deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Amatali, followed by Steve West.
Good evening, everyone. I am Peter Amatuli, 3221 McGee Avenue here in Middletown. And I guess it pays to read the journal once in a while. I was late to this party coming down here for the first time, but I did see in the journal, I guess it was a couple days ago, that this project was still moving forward and that the vote hasn't been taken. And quite honestly, thanks to the neighbors, I found out this didn't have a stake in it yet. And so there's been a lot of particulars. I have written, I believe all of you at some point in email. Thank you for responding. I appreciate that. I have been and continue to be totally opposed to this project. Donna and I have been on our corner now for 36 years, which I believe gives me just a bit of standing. I think we live in the most beautiful, old, aesthetic neighborhood that's left in this city. And all I can say is everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, everything that I've researched about Horton and their projects, in my opinion, it is not good for the city, even though I've heard this multiple times throughout the course of this project development. And even more importantly, and I have a bias, I think it's an absolute disaster for our neighborhood. I heard that magic number again, $350,000 to $400,000. Was that it again? Every time I see that, I laugh. I'm not sure whose data that is. I'm not sure where they got those statistics, but Butler County is really good about sending me a couple times a year to pay taxes. And when someone comes along with that 400 grand, please send them over, because I think that's a total fabrication. There is no way, shape, or form they're going to build that low quality type of housing in that particular area and demand that kind of prices. And I think, again, it would absolutely, someone said, I think I read where this was good for Middletown. I cannot see that, and it certainly is not good for anything that has to do with our neighborhood. So I really would encourage all of you to vote no on this project. If they need somewhere to go, send them east out towards Atrium. I think there's still plenty of land out there. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Steve West is next, followed by Peggy Trimble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Steve West. I live at 529 Euclid Street. I won't take up much time. We have a shot clock, but it's 4 minutes. I'll give you back a couple minutes. Most of my speaking points were covered by previous citizen comments, so I won't harp on them. I would like to congratulate Sergeant Jordan on his recent promotion. I know he and K-9 Code have done a lot of good things for this city. I'd like to thank Council for their clarity, their communication through email, social media, not only on this project, but also with Town Mall. We truly appreciate it. Even when we go into bandanas, Monica and I speak quite frequently. So I'd like to thank that. As far as Town Mall, I'm excited to see something go there. You know, in the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a lot of opportunities missed. Every other exit off the freeway has flourished, while ours, we said, hey, we built a new hospital. So as far as the Hill development, obviously everyone here knows my stance. I have a lot of concerns. One of which, it was kind of interesting, I've heard quite frequently where these homes are going to increase our own house values. And on Sunday, I went and toured 2705 McGee, which, if you're facing Church of the Ascension, it's the gray house on the left. I'm sure Rodney and Zach are very familiar with that property. And it's 3,700 square feet, 4-bedroom, I don't know, bathrooms everywhere, elevator, 0.8 of an acre, two-car attached garage, 4-car detached garage. I mean, massive. Anyway, beautiful house, outstanding. Big open kitchen. And it was listed for $454,000, and it went under contract right away. So I question, as some of my other neighbors, how these other homes will be worth $400,000. My other concern, and I spoke to last time, is the developer at the last meeting had said, you know, without the city approving sewer tap and water tap fees being waived, this may not be financially viable. And to me, that was a huge red flag. If we're looking at homes that are mid 350s up to, you know, just over 4, you know, each house, it's about $3,500 for water, $3,500 for sewer. So you're around $7,000 total for a tap fee. That's roughly anywhere from 1.75% to 2% on the total cost of the home. And if it's hinging on that, I question sort of the validity. And with that said, I think any time that we vote on changing zoning, I think we have to look at what guarantees are in that development plan. And from what I've seen and what I've read and what I've researched, there's not a lot that's guaranteed that would make me feel comfortable to support this. Fox Business News website yesterday just published an article, and it kind of goes with the Bloomberg article that I spoke to last time, and it's titled "Home Builders See Housing Recession as Sentiment Plunges to Fresh 2-Year Low." So the market's trending not in our favor, especially for our neighborhood and for the city with any new housing developments. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks. You beat the shot clock. All right, we've got Peggy Trimble, followed by Steve Lewis.
Good evening. You've seen me here before. Usually I have half a meeting to scribble notes, so my notes are not as good tonight. I do have a little bit of a different topic.
Can you state your name and address for the record for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm Peggy Trimble. I live at 2701 McGee Avenue. I can see the hill from my yard, from inside my house. Mr. Hayda spoke of not being able to see a 3D vision of these homes, only 2D pictures. A friend and I recently found where D.R. Horton was building a subdivision just outside of Morrow. And we went over and looked at it. Those houses are about 3/4 of the way built, if not more. And I will tell you that I was truly surprised by them. They did not live up to any of my expectations. Their quality is not what I expected. I didn't expect to match quality of the houses that it will be surrounded by, but I mean, okay, so I could list like 4 things, and I hate to do it. I know that the Horton representatives are here. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but I am telling you, I was really disappointed. Just up the street from that was a subdivision built by Ryan. The houses were a little bit better. They were totally different from one to another. They were a little more established with grass and trees. But they were still building on those properties, and they had a sign out front that said, "Building on wooded lots with basements, priced from the mid-200,000s," which was a bit of a surprise to me, since we're talking, quite a bit more for a product that I don't think was quite as good. I want to talk to you a bit about Old Roosevelt Road. You know, many years ago, someone came before you and asked to build, 4 or 5 duplexes there. And it was okayed by council. I mean, this is way before your all's time. and it was okay. They built them. And I know at least one or more of those people who were on commission have come back and said, it was such a mistake. Those condos are nothing compared to the area around it, even though it's a nice, modest area. But the condos were just not of anything near the same quality. And I really do think that if you decide to vote this in, just like those duplexes, these houses are never going to go away. I mean, they will be there forever. I think you're going to be surprised at the quality. I was hoping that one of you might have time to run over outside of Morrow and take a look at these homes that are going up before tonight's meeting and kind of spread the word to the others about what you thought about them. I do not think that they will increase the property values of the surrounding houses. I can't see how that can happen. This new build will not be a subdivision that Middletown can be proud of or will project the image that Middletown wants to project. As someone else said, Middletown really deserves better. Please vote no. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Steve Lewis, followed by Dustin Hurley.
Steve Lewis, 4614 Wicklow Drive, Middletown, Ohio. In regards to this ordinance 0202214 or 41, I'm hoping that you will not let this go any farther. It needs a no vote in regards to this rezoning. These are not the right homes for this area. Plain and simple. We can do much better. You're going to hear some redundancy here with me. There's been fabulous speakers that come down after the matriarch of that neighborhood is big to come behind Peggy Trimble. In the news, which Horton has been in the news, they're giving some incentives, and for all these new buildings that are going up and all these construction companies and these home builders, the market is downturn. It's turning over a little bit, and not for the positive. You need to be very cautious in the sense if once they get on that property or any builder gets on that property, regardless of what's been said here or talked about, they're on that property. They can basically do what they like within reason, but things can change. Some homes can sit there. Things aren't moving forward. What are you going to do about that? It has been stated several times how special this ground is. This ground is special, all right. I'm the matriarch of Gladys Drive, and being over there, I am concerned about what is truly down at building level and where the ground sits. I'm truly hoping that someone has taken John Barton seriously with his notes. I know his letters are interesting, but Mr. Barton is a true believer in what goes on that property and has seen a lot. And I would encourage someone to speak to him. How this got here, I will say, I'm going to write an email to some people, but Planning Commission, and I only bring this up in the sense of Mrs. Trimble did a fabulous thing. I've mentioned it before. She simply turned around and said, "Who's for this?" Well, 80% of the room raised their hand saying no, they were not, but it still got through. So I'm like, well, what good does it do if you're in the majority and you've come down, you're given your time, you've invested your time, and it still doesn't go, you don't get your vote. I mean, it was very obvious that it wasn't liked. It didn't want to go this direction. So I'm real concerned about Planning Commission if there needs to be some things changed there. I just feel, and I agree with Mr. Lacey, let's just stop. Can we not come up with some better ideas? Can we not reach out to some other builders that see the bigger picture of that neighborhood? I know it's out there. And bravo to Mr. Kohler for bringing it up. I have been doing this and coming down here for years and years. And this waiving tap fees, that's just money out of my pocket. No offense. It's just another gimmick that the city bends over. Well, where's that line at? Where's the line at that I get some money or some kickback? And I mean that with all due respect. But, it's a housing development. It's not a commercial development. And honestly, thank all of you for your time. I know you've been patient with all of us. Truly, I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you. And the last citizen comment card I have is Dustin Hurley.
Good evening, Dustin Hurley, office address 301 North Briel. As you know, I'm the attorney for the Oaks Community Church. I'm going to touch on 4 topics. First, I think you all know there is a real need in this community for new single-family homes. Ignore the location, ignore the quality, all of those things. Just focus on the fact that for 15 years in this community, we've talked about a need for new single-family homes. These homes are going to help schools, they're going to help your large employers, they're going to help the small businesses here. So make no mistake that this project is a rare opportunity for council to solve a major problem in our community that we have talked about for a long time. It's also an opportunity for you to recognize and reward your city staff for the hard work that they've done to get this project to this point. I know you're going to be looking at hiring some new economic development employees. You know, this project can send a message to them that we can get big projects done in this city if they are good for the city overall. So the second topic is regarding engaging the public. At the public hearing at the last meeting, there were some allegations that D.R. Horton or the property owner or the city staff did not sufficiently engage the public through this process. I think contrary to what those people have claimed, there have been meetings on multiple occasions for a period of many months. I personally had my first meeting with the city staff on this project more than a year ago. So while it may seem exhausting that this project has been around this long, I think the other way to look at that is that's how long it takes for compromises to come together and a project to get to the point that the staff can support it and hopefully council can support it. There have been lots of meetings and engagement with the property owners themselves. You know, there's been a lot of revisions and concessions made based purely on the input from the property owners, from the surrounding property owners, and there have been a lot of revisions and concessions made based on input from council and your staff throughout this process. So it couldn't be further from the truth to allege that the church and the developer have not engaged the public. In fact, I think this project is a great example of how in large projects like this, it takes time and the parties come together in the spirit of compromise in order to make things happen. Regarding other uses of the property, you know, the city doesn't own this. The other property owners don't own it. There's been a lot of discussion about how this property is, you know, one of the last developable pieces of real estate, or that it's a gem and things like that. But here's the thing. Nobody's asking council to figure out what is the best way to develop this property. If you owned it, that would be a totally different discussion. What we're asking council to do is review the project in light of your 6 review criteria that you have established. And I think if you review the project without any bias, reasonable minds are going to conclude that the project satisfies at least a majority of your review criteria, and arguably all of them. Last, when you listen to the objections that are raised, I understand them, certainly respect all of them. There is one common thread, which is I think these objections are very inward focused. Obviously, people are going to be concerned about what's outside their window. What you don't hear are compelling reasons why this project is bad for the city of Middletown overall. I think if you look at this project from a macro level, it becomes easy to understand why this project has gotten this far along in the process. So I hope you will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all the citizens who've taken your time to put together your thoughts, to talk to each other, to talk to leaders, and communicate your thoughts and feelings. And it's very much appreciated. It helps us as council members. I know it helps staff, property owners, developers. So thank you sincerely for taking all that time. Okay, next we have council comments. Oh, Mr. Farrell, would you like to kick us off?
I hate going first.
You want to go last?
Yeah, let Rodney
I
go.
mean, if you're not first, you're last. All right.
What the heck?
Tal, you want to go out of order? Let's
Yeah.
go with Mr. Moon.
All right. Only comment I have tonight is I want to congratulate Sergeant Jordan on his promotion. Just incredible achievement. So thankful for his service. And Middletown is certainly better for having officers like Denny in our department. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Denny, you want to go next?
Yeah, similarly, I don't have a whole lot to add, just my congratulations to Sergeant Jordan and the Middletown Police Department for his valuable leadership and continued service to our city. I just want to thank him and all of the staff who got him to where he is and taking that leadership position. We have a huge staff in Middletown, in the police department and the fire department, and in this city building who work really hard for us every day. So thank you to all of them as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Muterspaw.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, congratulations to Denny Jordan. I've always said if I had a problem in my neighborhood, he's the one I would want to handle it. So that's the best compliment I could give. And I was actually his supervisor for years in special operations and all that. And man, he's a fantastic officer. And to see him get promoted is just incredible. So these are milestones that people don't forget. So to be here tonight for that was really special. I'll save my comments for the Hill project when we come to the legislation, but that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Farrell.
I'll say the same about Denny that everybody else said. Welcome Ashley Combs back to the city building. And Saturday is Hops in the Hangar. I think it starts at 5:30, roughly. I'll be there. That's all I have. Thanks.
5 o'clock.
5.
4 o'clock if you've got
Or
VIP
if you're VIP.
tickets.
I'll be there at 4. There you go.
I'll be there. I'll see you there.
I don't have anything to add aside from congratulations to Denny and the whole department. You guys are definitely a rock in our community, and we're grateful for it. Okay, Mr. Lawley, do you have anything for city manager report?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Condrey and members of council. Tonight I have a few-minute presentation by a committee of the Coalition for Healthy Middletown. And this is kind of an idea that's been spreading a little bit around the country on how to deal with warming shelter ideas. Staff sat down and they presented to staff and why we think it's a good idea and something to look back. We continue to really think that the homeless situation really needs to be done on a regional basis, if not county basis, and this is a great idea, and we kind of think maybe it could pick up steam for not only Middletown, but the surrounding area and regional. So with that, I'm going to invite Deanna Shores with the Coalition for Healthy Middletown and their Unhoused Individual Committee to give this presentation.
That way you can drive your own presentation. So the big button will push you forward.
Okay. See how I'll do. Let's go this first slide for just a second. Hello, council. Thank you for receiving me this time. I'm really here just really speaking on behalf as liaison for the group who's been really working really hard at this project. As the Safety Council of Southwestern Ohio, there are many projects underneath that core. I am project coordinator for the Coalition for Healthy Middletown. Many of you are familiar with other programs, Safety Town, of course, being one of the most popular, workplace safety, and then Click It and Ticket and all the good stuff is also a program under there. The coalition has been working on restructuring, and at the time, what we've decided to do is to help citizens and support them through the efforts of really taking an issue and kind of really narrowing it down in order that they might see some results from it. So in this case, the first action circle of the Unhoused, this is kind of the first one of its type. And it's hoping to set the type and shadow model for this kind of thing in the future. So there are very particular groups of comments that I needed to get to. So I am going to refer here to the notes quite often. But let's get started. The coalition is just acting as a liaison for the group again. The goals of this action circle are that are made up of concerned citizens is so that everything can be kind of open into the entire public. The issue of unhoused, of course, is a sensitive topic, lots of opinions, one way or the other, and we don't aim to solve this issue. We're actually just here to discuss a potential short-term solution to a long-term problem. Of course, as we continue to work, as Chief had said, with the state and our region. So this all began in March with a town hall. I won't go there yet. This all began in March with a town hall meeting. Over 100 people attended, and thank you to those in this room who attended. 5 action circle meetings to kind of narrow down and really hear from citizens ensued. And then the action circle kind of took form. You had more people who kind of showed up more regularly. You have volunteers. This has been completely volunteer-driven, and they've put in over 100 hours on this project. And so we want to come today and talk about what kind of got decided upon in terms to bring to you. So what we're going to talk about today is the Dignity Bus. A Dignity Bus or a mobile overnight shelter is what is pictured here. Okay, so some might say, how did we end up at a Dignity Bus? Well, the first thing is when you're talking about the homeless is to secure a place to sleep that is safe and that is safe from the elements and often also other people. The point in time study shows that we do still have about 200 homeless in Middletown, and that Shalom has still decided, they have still yet to decide if they're going to move forward because they do have new leadership who hasn't quite decided what they were going to do. We did think that their model was an excellent one. However, at this time, what are some short-term solutions? So in this case, another idea was to how do we reduce the number of homeless that need assistance? We do know we started partnering with the groups who are boots on the ground, and they are working continually to get people in programming. But first, again, back to the action circle, they decided that a short-term solution for this winter, 2022, was to secure a place to sleep, especially during those coldest days. And then the hope would be that with good rest and sleep and safety, they would be able to step into some programming that would then maybe assist them in long-term change. So the Dignity Bus, or the overnight shelter, as you can see here, is a driver, an attendant, and it has one bathroom and the beds themselves. So up here, if you want to look here at this, you see the bedding, the pod itself, also known as a berth, almost looks like a train of sorts. The attendant drives the bus around, and then you have someone who would be trained to attend to the clients who are going to utilize this system. The bathroom there is only just small enough for one person to utilize. One of the big issues with homeless, because some might ask, about the different crisis centers we have throughout the community. Well, a lot of them don't accept companion pets, or people cannot bring their belongings. So this bus actually sleeps about 20 people. There is storage underneath. There are climate-controlled pet pods as well. The idea would be that the guests would sleep there. They would be picked up at 4 different locations. You would be picked up and be able to sleep from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. at an undisclosed location. You just need a 220 power line for these buses. At 6 a.m., then they would be dropped off to identified area where they could get breakfast or things like that, and programming. Every day the bus would be sanitized. In fact, there are some agencies who've already stepped in to agree to launder items and to offer that sanitation at a daily point. Again, this is just for sleep at this point. We're not really solving for larger problems yet. But one of the things here is I Am the Source is where these buses come from. They actually build the bus. So here's a diagram of the bus itself. You see the storage locker, the pet pods, the internal storage, personal lockers, where the overnight caretaker would sit, and toilets. Phone charger, privacy curtain, security cameras, and again, climate control. So why a mobile night shelter over a brick and mortar shelter? We do have different shelters throughout our county that serve different populations because there are different forms of homelessness. This attempts to speak to the one that everyone mostly agrees that we don't want to wake up and find that someone froze to death on our streets. So this one speaks to that. There are several layers of homelessness that we've talked about in our action circles, but for the purposes of this communication, we're going to stick to the bus here. So also in our meetings, we've been able to hear from all groups of the community And this kind of eliminates the not in my backyard. This kind of eliminates that idea of division, because there are some points of contact that everybody agrees on. You know, nobody wants to see someone freeze to death. And then also security. Another thing is that people are thinking about the safety of our community and citizens, but also the safety and security of those folks who would need to utilize these pods. There would be 3 pods is what we're proposing, 1 for women, 1 for men, and then a 3rd pod. These pods do take a bit of time to create or build or develop, so we do have to keep that in mind, and that's why there's a sense of urgency. The group who actually makes the pods and customizes these can get 1 done every 6 weeks. We could have 1 essentially to us by November, when it starts to get about mid-November. Shalom would usually start. The next one would be by end of December, and then the last one would be in January. The cost of each bus is $120,000. These buses could also later be used by the city for other emergency cases, in the case that there needed to be some emergency housing due to weather or something that happened in the community. So, sustainability is often what we think about when we're coming before council and asking for assistance. We are asking for 3 buses, a total of $360,000. We think that the 3 are vital, 1 for women, 1 for men, and then again, the additional overflow there. This adds to the security of the buses. A sustainability plan is in the works. We are partnering with nonprofits. This group is seeking corporate champions to put money in escrow. They've already have entities and local entities and organizations who do relevant work, who are willing to participate and assist. And again, things like the laundering and sanitizing have already been agreed to cover for this winter. Blanket drives, adopt a pod, these are all some really interesting things that the group would like to continue to work on. Who will run it? The group that has been working on this are solidifying their nonprofit. However, while they're doing that, they are working with people who have the CDBG compliancy certification in order to make sure that they are working hand in hand with long-standing and trusted groups who have done this work before. And also they'll be an assistant. This way they could assist in the programming and continue the continuum of care for the folks that will participate in this program. So let's go to the next slide. Again, there's some more information on sustainability, and they'll continue to work on that. Emergency Solutions Grant, Coalition on Homeless and Housing, and other local entities. So this goes back to the details of the bus. We'd like to know your thoughts on the concept. Do you like the concept of the bus, the program? We'd like you to consider this as you look forward to winter and thinking about possibly addressing the needs of the homeless this winter. And this is an actual plan that is in place, and it could be something that even for now we could use until we have a more tangible plan. This would also be a tangible asset to the city. We're not asking the city to pay for programming or anything like that at this time. We are just asking for the assistance with the bus. And finally here, just wanted to remind everyone that this is a citizen-driven effort. As with other of these programs that we have done in the city before, being citizen-led and driven have been very successful in the past and in the present. New things like Middletown Holiday Hoopla, the Balloon Challenge, and all of us can remember programs like Midfest and things like that. So we are also stating that this group is saying, hey, council does not have to look at this alone. With just sleep, you will not see the numbers necessarily dwindle on the streets. However, we do believe that sleep can change everything. Any questions at this time?
Are these programs up on here, and its leaders officially supporting this effort?
I'm sorry.
You put a lot of different events and programs up. Are you saying
We're
that the
suggesting
leaders?
that these are other citizen-driven projects that have happened in Middletown, and that we're suggesting, hey, we're always asking the community to get involved. The community did get involved here. They stepped in and put a lot of hours in. And that in the past, we have seen some positive results from that, and we're hoping to do that again.
Okay, so you're not insinuating that the leaders of these
Not at all.
Okay.
Deanna, thanks to the coalition for taking the time to think through this. This is certainly creative. A couple questions.
Yes.
Is the only option to own? There is no option to rent.
So originally, as we went through all of the different options, we actually stumbled upon this by looking at an initial option that would allow you to lease a similar bus. You would lease it for so many months, and then you would return it. So there are many options. We just needed to be able to kind of come into an agreement to narrow it down for this particular discussion.
Has there been any thought given, and either by you guys or maybe staff, about how we handle security? 'Cause I know we had to have folks at past warming shelters if a scuffle broke out. Any thoughts on that? Or?
Yes, so that was one of the things that was really well thought out in terms of having adequate staffing. These wouldn't just be 2 people, and these would not be volunteers. And I had also suggested that we put a line item in for security cost, and looking into maybe police officers who would like to do that off their time.
You said you're not asking us for programming help with that, so
No.
that would all be part of the programming.
Exactly, but I'm glad
as
that
opposed
that's
to
how
the hard costs.
Yeah, brought up the safety issue, because that was one of the main things. We're not just thinking about the safety of the people utilizing them. We are addressing that there are real concerns for business owners and individuals. So this felt like a happy median to the group.
And Deanna, I know you shared with us a number of sort of right now homeless or unhoused people here. But how many people were, if you know this answer, how many people were utilizing the Shalom program on average?
35 to 40 people they stated that they were serving. So as you can see, because a lot of people may say, well, where's Hope House, right? Where are they in this? Or that, again, we kind of, as a group, define different levels of homelessness. There are some people who are experiencing some temporary homelessness, maybe due to a bad relationship, losing a job. Then there are some who have been chronically homeless and on the streets for many, many years. And then you have some who are homeless because of extreme mental illness and inability to medicate on a regular basis. So there's just different levels, and no one agency can kind of meet all of those needs. And so that's what we were really looking at. There's, again, no attempt to solve the problem, but to reduce the number of homeless that are maybe living in the camps or that are roaming the streets, and that with sleep, we could maybe convince them to get adequate care, because we are rich in that area. We have a lot of people, a lot of programming who would like to help them if we can get that on a consistent basis.
I think my question, and we've worked on this pretty hard. I think you and I have worked on this in a past
Real
life.
long time.
Long time, yeah. I think, most of the public, maybe they don't know, but probably 70% of our homeless are not from Middletown. They're dumped here, or they come here. Unfortunately, being dumped here, I mean. I guess is this going to, when this gets out that we have dignity buses, is this going to invite more homeless to be dropped here by other agencies? Because, and I know you're just looking for a place for them to sleep.
Yes,
I get that.
it will.
But that's my question. But the other thing is, if Middletown tax dollars are asking to be paid $300,000 for the buses,
Yes.
should other cities who bring them here incur that debt as well as us?
So as a part of this, to your point, again, all voices were heard during this process. So when we started the process, we actually got the ear of the state as well. They came down and did some formal, some homeless forums based on our initial town hall. And that this, working with this group, I also made sure that Westchester, we actually held those forums in Westchester. Hamilton has several. We've worked in the past with Hamilton with their emergency, truly emergency shelter, where they have cots in a big room and lots of people when the weather is really down. They're actually building more low-income housing or voucher-approved housing. So I know at least in Hamilton, we've been definitely working on the longer term plan is to say, hey, how do we all kind of work this together? There are not enough buses to serve even the 200 that we have here. So let's say we break that number down to actual who we might consider a Middletonian. We would be able to serve a small capacity. So this is not to make any one community comfortable. This is simply to say, hey, we believe in dignity. We believe that people shouldn't freeze to death on the streets, and we're just attempting to find a way to solve that.
Would these buses be used year-round, or are we talking about only using them in the wintertime?
Primarily, the programming and funding and everything we're looking for are those bitter cold times. However, even in the blistering heat and things like that, they do have the AC unit. If we ever felt like this summer, for instance, has been pretty mild, hasn't been a call for maybe too many emergencies, maybe a few days that were really, really hot. But this is mainly to serve the cold weather.
And how is it a regional solution?
Well, I didn't suggest that it was a regional, I'm not saying it's a regional solution. I'm saying that we, in this whole process, there are long-term and short-term. And a part of that was to engage from the state level all the way down to the county level. And so we're saying, hey, maybe other areas, again, Hamilton is stepping up. They are offering housing. They do have several shelters. We have a shelter here as well. We're saying, hey, Westchester, you know, what's your part here? And we're just saying, hey, here might be a model that can, one, serve us immediately now with maybe not so much skin in the game, but we're saying, hey, this is what Middletown is willing to do. I'm just here really as a liaison for the group to say, hey, whatever it is we're going to do, I feel that we need to just say, this is what Middletown's going to do. And this group felt passionate enough to put in that work in that time to come up with, hey, their dream is much bigger. It's about affordable and beautiful housing, but they said realistically for the community, what is going to work, including what's going to work for business owners, what's going to work for the everyday person who doesn't want to deal with any of it, right? We're also having real candid conversations about the camps. You know, how do we improve that and reduce those numbers? What are the legal rights of citizens to be able to call upon the police, and what kind of, when we think about the financial strain, either way, we're paying one way or the other. And so I just think whatever it is, even if it's not this plan, I just think the citizens are just saying, hey, we want to be able to stand up and have a plan that everybody can get behind, at least for this winter, and move us on to something else.
Yeah, I do appreciate the energy and the effort that you've put into this. And I'm curious now that this plan has been shared with us and with our citizens, what they think about it. So I'll certainly, I'm sure with the rest of council, look to the citizens to say what they think about this plan.
And in these action circles, we had lots of, there was no one voice. It was definitely a lot of voices in the room, so.
And I appreciate the heart of Middletonians to want to do something to help these unhoused people in some of the most dire situations of weather and circumstance. I just certainly wish, as well as I'm sure everyone else does, that some of the other communities, not Middletown, not Hamilton, were stepping up to say that they wanted to do something about their unhoused homeless.
Absolutely.
Paul, do you know off the top of your head what we spent on the warming center last year?
Oh, I never saw the final number, but to me, it was significant.
Was it around like low 100s? I don't.
Maybe not quite. Then do you recall what some of the...
I would guess that's approximately correct. Some of that got a little complicated with who was paying for the added fire services in the end, city versus Freya's, but I think roughly the $90,000, $100,000-ish.
Okay.
Almost on the way to one bus.
I definitely appreciate the heart and effort. I know Middletown is not short on its heart, and that is why I love this city. And so I'm grateful for everybody that's put time into it. I'm absolutely opposed to city-managed funds or efforts going towards this particular solution. The liability alone just has me not wanting to go down that avenue. I also think it's expensive and not really getting at the root of the problems, which I know we're focused on trying to house people, But I really wish we could get some efforts more aligned and trying to get at the root of what's going on, because I think our return on that time and money is just so much greater. Not that I'm not grateful for, of course, trying to go down this route. I just, I think we're trying to put a small little Band-Aid on, a bleeding artery, that we need to address the artery instead of, the one small aspect. So I just, I'm grateful for the presentation, the solution. I don't find that it's, something that I'm supportive city funds going toward. But that's also why we have these discussions and presentations, and I am grateful for all the time and energy that people are putting into the topic. Appreciate it.
I guess that's sort of the point of liability for me, as we talked last year. That was one of the reasons I didn't want the city taking it on. And this does, if we are to own the buses, if we are to pay for the buses, then that does open us up to a lot of liability, and that's probably my major concern with this. But I do.
Can we have legal look into that and see if there would be any just potential liability or fallback on the city for owning the buses?
Happy to look at that. I mean, obviously, we could go into a long analysis of government immunity for when providing government services, but at the end of the day, still, if bad things happen, there's always the risk of liability. Maybe I'll successfully be able to defend against it or not, but there's certainly risk with that. But I'm happy to do a much more in-depth analysis if council would like.
Yeah. And I'd be curious to know a little bit more about this application in other communities. What other communities have used these buses? What are the success of those programs?
Yes.
It certainly opens up a lot of questions of like, what other, is this a best practice in another community, and can we copy that success? Is that even attainable? Those sort of things. Those case studies, I think, are important.
So this, and that's one of the things the group did spend some time on, was looking at the program from Florida, and then also working with some local folks who have done either small communities or, as you suggest, there's a lot of things you have to do to get to that artery. If anybody knew that magic thing, they'd make a lot of money, right? When it comes to housing. I've been working with the homeless for over 5 years myself, and everybody's tried to come at it different ways, and there's no solution. There will always be homeless among us, right? So that's not the goal. However, with this group of citizens, they really wanted the opportunity to try to say, hey, well, how do we make sure that the morning paper doesn't say there were dead people on our street because they were freezing? Not to be, over melodramatic, right? I don't know. Is that some? This is one of the members of the group. So is she able to make a comment?
Yeah, this is city manager time, so it's up to him what he wants.
That's up to Mr. Lally. Okay. And to the point about cost as well, the group did figure out it's about $10.16 per person to run the buses each day.
Per person who is being housed?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. But that includes the wages of the people who would run it.
That's aside from the purchase of the bus.
Yes.
Yeah, that's operational cost.
So you're saying like $200 a day to run it, operating costs?
I'll let you. Yeah. Did you know?
Yeah.
How would you pay somebody on that alone?
Do you want this?
Yeah, I'll take that. My name is Elizabeth Slamka. Hi. I work in 1518 Central Avenue, and so I'm part of the Unhoused Action Circle, and just wanted to spend a little bit of time to kind of speak to a little bit of what you guys have been saying and asking. The first thing I heard was that this is, yes, I can understand how you can say it could be a Band-Aid. Absolutely, I see that. And what we're hoping is this. Over the time of the action circles, we heard what Middletown wanted, right? We had people who were absolutely against, and we had people who wanted to make a difference, and we also kept the idea of revitalization of our city in mind as well. So working with the Action Circle, hearing from the citizens, this is what they said to us. Number one, we want to see what Shalom is doing this winter. Number one, if they're working, how can we support them? If they're not, we need to do something. Number two, we'd like to reduce the numbers of people in the camps. So how do you do that? Well, number three, anything we do must be program-based. It's only with that added effort that you're going to start seeing numbers change. So what we're thinking is, this is like the first part of the actual plan that we thought was good and would work for Middletown. Because this is a mobile overnight shelter, like Deanna was saying, it does eliminate some of that, well, it's a good idea, but not here. But the other point is this: not only is it going to be good for the winter, for the very hot months, but you actually can use it all year round. And what happens is this also, as we're looking for the nonprofits to take over that other section, because again, we're not asking you to operate anything at all. We'll take care of that end. However, we would like to have a conversation about this, right? But what happens is winter is on its way. The program that we see is sleeping buses with programming. However, the cold is coming. So let's propose this to you, the idea itself. As we're working in the background, we're continuing to work. We're looking at putting the programming with it. So we're not just putting this out there and leaving it. Plus, this would be kind of like the beginning of also the second thing that the people of Middletown noticed is that we do need some long-term ideas. Because as Deanna was saying, there's not just one reason for homelessness. There's definitely not just one answer, and it takes time. One of the things she alluded to as well was we talked about security and things like that. As you know, the police have been working with the homeless in the camps. They've developed a lot of trust over the past year and a half. We have people who have been working with the homeless. They think this is also could be a good idea. So we're thinking that this is going to be endorsed as well. One of the things we really like about the buses also, as opposed to a brick and mortar, because that's usually the goal anyway, because you can do certain things with an actual location that you can't do with a mobile shelter, obviously. However, the safety issue of putting everything underneath, having, they cannot bring anything except themselves basically onto the bus, not even food and water. If they need medications, that goes to the front of the bus. If they need water, that goes to the front of the bus. This is just for sleeping, and that's it. So while we have these in the background, we're also going to be working on the programming, so we put those with them as soon as possible and work from there. And at that point, maybe we will start seeing some of the numbers going down, some of a difference on the streets. But it does take time, and it does take programming. It takes everything.
Just a clarification, because you said that we'll be running the program, so I want to make sure I understand and I'm not losing something. Is the city going to buy the buses or lease the buses and run the program, or is the city going to buy or lease the buses and you'll run the program?
The city, if you agree, right, the city would buy the buses and I believe do maintenance for well, the reason I say that is because they're like, well, if the city owns them,
I'm asking this to the point of the liability that these two folks bring.
Oh, got you. So as far as liability, no, the city would not be operating.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you would
We're in conversation with nonprofits who actually work with these populations already, people who have a long-standing reputation, who are known, and then we're in communication with them to see how this might come together.
This was an attempt at a partnership.
Yeah.
Right, as in saying, hey, the city doesn't have to do it alone, and the citizens can have some support, but actually calling the community to step up. However, don't get me wrong, we have looked at all those issues as well too, liability.
Yeah, because it's still, if you want our, police force, fire force, that's still city liability.
Yeah, we're not asking for that. Police force and fire.
You said that you were looking into.
No, I said as a line item, hiring in the budget. I know that there are police officers who will take jobs after their shift or whatever for additional pay. My point to Tal was that, Mr. Moo, that we have looked at the cost of security. So whether that's a security company or that's hiring the police force. Yeah.
Another thing, Monica, you had asked a question about seeing like case studies and actual evidence of how this works. That's something that we looked at with I Am the Source. They're the people that created this and fabricated. This was a concept in 2019. They are in Vero Beach, Florida. They were thinking, how can we serve our population? So they've had a bus in operation since 2020, the prototype, 2021. People from many places are looking at this idea as a possibility for their communities because it does fit a niche that's different. It's a tangible asset for the city, but it's not a brick and mortar. So it gives you a little bit more leeway.
So this is a relatively new concept.
Relatively new concept, yeah.
Not super tested in other communities.
Now, the leasing, where the idea kind of originated originally about leasing the buses and not owning them, which I think a few years ago, it was quite maybe 5,000.
You make sure the microphone is towards you as well.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm saying that originally from the beginning when we were talking about a bus at all, people have been using safety buses for quite a while, but those were like a lease option. So what is new about this option is that they will customize to the point of having pet pods and, like you would take a thing and then you develop it further to kind of meet needs that you hadn't thought about before. Many people won't go in shelter because they have companion pets or things like that they can't do.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
So the goal of this is to reduce the homeless camps, but we're offering pet storage and all that other places aren't. So wouldn't more people be inclined to come here?
Well, the ultimate goal is to try to get people off the streets. This is because what would really work, Middletown wasn't ready for, right? So this is a way to get that started. We have an issue. We can all agree to that. We have something going on in Middletown, and it's there.
Right, a city our size shouldn't have the issue that.
I'm sorry?
A city our size shouldn't have which is nobody's fault, but it's where we're at, right?
And it's there, right? Yeah. So that's why we're saying, what can we do as a city that works for Middletown? What we're looking to do, what we're dealing with. And this was probably the best idea that was well liked by the city staff. It was something that could work. Plus, I know that Tony Zorbaugh, the man who created the buses, also drew some inspiration from Europe where they use like double deckers and things like that. So this is not a foreign idea, but it is unique.
So I went out on a limb on the warming shelter.
Mm-hmm.
I was even a proponent of spending more citizen tax dollars to have the programming that surrounded it. And it blew up in our face. It did not go well. I don't have any data from it. I don't know of any impact on anyone's lives that came out of that. I don't think it went well. So that's my perspective. I went out on a limb. It's not traditionally how, I vote on these kinds of matters. And so I want you guys to understand that you say added programming and whatnot, like I have no basis to know that would ever work. And the one data point I have is not a good one.
Right. And certainly we take that into account. Again, the presentation is, this is what the citizens came together, both ones who were, hey, they don't want nothing to do with, there were some people who were at the meetings who said they don't want to do anything. It's somebody else's responsibility, leave the people in the camps. Some other people said, let's bulldoze the camps. We tried to have a hodgepodge of hearing from everyone. And even to the point where we looked at the legality of, can you put up a notice somewhere where people are, a 30-day notice or a 10-day notice, what are the rights of people? So to your point, no, every stone was not, every stone was picked up and looked at a little. However, with the plan last year, to the point of this group, the reason they spent so much time was that plan was not, there wasn't a lot of time spent there. If not this solution, this group is very open to hearing from council on just something that, again, as a city, we can get behind and stand firm on while people are spending time looking for maybe better or more long-term solutions. I believe the solution for last year was made rather quickly. So to your point, that could also lend itself.
And I have to give Elizabeth a lot of credit for facilitating a lot of these discussions. I know I've been to some of them at the beginning, and you have a way of keeping things diplomatic and calm, and I just do want to say
out of this world.
Yeah, it is not unnoticed. So I really do appreciate your leadership in the city and working through a lot of that.
Yeah.
And as a business owner. Right?
I'm not a business owner, but that's okay.
Related to
I'm
business owner.
I'm a family business person.
Okay. But I'm just saying that I think what was unique about this group is that they did try to listen to all the voices, even the ones that aren't so popular, and that citizens like Elizabeth do understand both sides of the coin, right?
Right, and we are also, like, because it isn't, as I said, it is an issue. It's not going away. And do we want to see it move to other cities and counties? Yes. I think this is also something that might be attractive to other cities and counties, or other cities in the county as well. And I can see, because like I said, my family does own a business in the downtown. We see things as well. So it's not that I'm not thinking that way as well. I am trying to think, what is the best for Middletown? How do we address this? It does need to be addressed. And the reason why there's so much urgency right now is because of the cold that is coming. Even now, we might even have the heat that is coming, but we don't have that time at this point. But we can have this asset, we can use it, utilize it. It can be something we can do all year long, and it is something that we can start the pathway, because ultimately it is a pathway out that we want, because people are only ready to move when they're ready. I mean, just think about your own life. But when they're ready to make a difference for themselves and their own livelihood, we want a pathway there ready for them to be able to hop into, have support, and to keep going. So we can see how we could partner with the programming that's already here and move them along that way, feeling support, knowing they have the communication with the police department, with the people here. They have those relationships. I mean, it's amazing what the city can do and what we've learned just by being part of this Unhoused Action Circle.
Well, and we thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time.
Of the city manager's time and yours. If you have any other questions, certainly.
Just on the note that this is the city manager's time, I wonder if we might make a request to the city manager to spend maybe a little bit more time as a council talking about this, or talking about whatever our solution is going to be. I mean, I think certainly we get some feedback from this, and maybe it warrants another conversation down the road about what exactly our plan is and what exactly we want to do, whether it's this or something else or nothing at all. I think that council needs to take some extra time to have that conversation at a later date. So
we agree.
Not too late, because obviously this is a time-sensitive matter. But I would request that maybe we have a work session or something to delve into this a little further.
Any questions that you might have, we'll shoot you. I think you'll have a copy of the presentation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
And we certainly will, because obviously it's something we're going to need to address before the winter comes on. So my team are currently meeting, and we'll be meeting more here in the very near future, meaning days and weeks, to have something in place by the winter.
Now, Paul, when will we know, or will we know, if Shalom is going to take up this shelter?
I don't know, Chief Burke, if you've had any further conversations with them, or Diane?
And to that point, too, I mean, even when Shalom was up and running, I mean, there were people who thought it to be successful and people who thought it to not be very successful. So, I mean,
They house anywhere from 35 to 40, depending on the night. They have a new pastor, so they're just trying to determine what the vision is of the new pastor before. I talked to Bill Fugit a couple weeks ago, so right now they're still undecided if they're even going to open this year.
do you think that that decision is based on a decision that the city might make to fund something?
No, I think it comes down to a lot of the volunteers were a little elderly, so I think they've lost a lot of volunteers for COVID. And I think with the new pastor getting there, I think they're just trying to find the vision, what they're doing. So I just think, if they're able to do it and they find the churches and stuff, great. That was a big help for us. But if they're unable to, then we have to have an alternative for the winter.
Chief, do you still have your COP unit? Are they still working the homeless?
Yes, they are. They're still going out a couple days a week with Victoria. They've bringing other social groups out. I think the big problem we're having right now is a large percentage of them don't want help. They choose to be homeless. We're seeing an intake of people coming from outside of Middletown. I'm receiving emails from Victoria that a lot of people are coming off the bus path and coming from here to Hamilton or wherever. So we are seeing several more from outside the city.
And on that note, it feels to me like if they don't want help, the Dignity Bus is enabling that decision in their life. That's a feeling that I have and a concern that I have about.
We constantly go out, like I said, COP goes out with Victoria. They're making the relationships. I think they're building the trust. They do contact us when they do want help. I think right now the problem is a big percentage of them don't want help. They want to stay homeless, but it is summertime. So it's warm out there. They don't need the services right now. But as it gets colder, maybe a few of them change their mind.
What percentage of our homeless would you say, I don't know if you know, is from Middletown versus outside areas? Any idea?
I don't know. We've identified at least 200 homeless. I would say we're probably looking at maybe 50-50. I think we're starting to see more and more come to Middletown, though. From the emails I'm receiving, we're getting a lot more from different cities throughout Butler County.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have no further report.
You don't have another one up your sleeve?
I fell asleep there.
We'll see what other controversial topic you can bring next week for us.
Oh.
There are plenty, we know. We've got 'em, huh? Take a number. Okay, let's move on, I guess, to our legislation now.
Sure. So, Council, you've got 13 items on your agenda tonight, the first 8 of which are proposed as first reading emergencies. So before I get started, I would just request that Council pass a motion waiving the charter provisions for second readings and emergencies.
Before we do that, I am not interested in seeing ordinance 2022-71 read as an emergency. So I would prefer we separate the vote on that one.
So you can, if you want to, that's certainly fine. Also, if it doesn't get at least 4 votes to pass as an emergency, it would just pass as a non-emergency.
Right, but we typically clump them together as my...
Yeah, so if you want to either bifurcate that one out now, you can, or if you want to vote no on it as an emergency later, you can, whichever way you'd prefer.
Vote no.
Vote for, if 4 people vote for it, is your concern with passage of it at all, or is it just passage of it as an
The
emergency?
emergency aspect.
Okay, I see your point. Then yeah, we can just bifurcate that out.
Okay.
So then I would at least need a motion to pass items 1 through 8 minus item 5, waiving the charter provisions for second readings and emergencies.
All right. I would like to move to waive the charter provision requiring reading on 2 separate days and to declare ordinance number O-2022-68, ordinance number O-2022-69, ordinance number O-2022-70, resolution number R-2022-31, ordinance number O-2022-72, ordinance number O-2022-73, and resolution number R-2022-32 as an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second.
Ms. Gann, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Meterspaugh?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
And then I would need a separate motion. Obviously, each council member is free to vote how they may, as specifically whether or not to read the second reading requirements and emergency provisions for ordinance number O-2022-71.
Before doing so, I just wanted to ask if it would be possible for us to see ordinance number O-2022-71 as a second reading emergency at the next meeting. Would that suffice to staff's request for expediency on that? I'm not sure who to ask.
And happy to cover that as much or as little as you want now. But yes, if you would like to do it as a first reading emergency, great. If you want to do it as a second reading emergency, great. If you want to do it as 2 meetings.
Will it suffice?
Well, I know that there was I know that there was a request on this for the expediency of this ordinance because of being in compliance with certain state codified ordinances. So I just want to make sure that if we take away this emergency.
Yeah, so I asked about that. There was no reason under any codified ordinances that it needed to be emergency, and there's a 246-page document that council did not receive.
Okay.
and was not able to review, that is just, I just,
Sure.
it's not.
And I
To
find
answer-
that understandable. I just want to.
Yeah, to answer both of your
yeah.
questions, whichever way you all feel comfortable with will be sufficient.
I think the question she's asking though is, are we going to miss a deadline?
No, just to
But-
state it differently, there's no deadline.
Or is there some expediency to maybe doing it as a second reading emergency to give time?
Whichever way you want. And just to unpack that maybe prematurely, what that item does basically is it will allow our codification group to codify our existing ordinances and everything that's been updated since the last time. It's really two parts. It's every ordinance that council has passed in the last year, give or take a little less than that. So it's not codifying any new legislation that's not before here. The one exception to this is the second thing, which is ever so often we ask our group that does the codifying of our ordinances, and that's basically the official book of all of our legislation of general application citywide. They update all the legislation that you all pass over the year, and then additionally they take everything that's in the criminal code section and they of the ORC, and they update that to match what we have in our legislation to be exactly what's in the ORC. The sole basis for that is really such that when police officers cite under that, they can cite it under the municipal code, such that that comes to municipal court, and the municipal court gets those fees associated with that citation. If we don't update it to the current version of the criminal code under the ORC, and they need to cite for something that's since been updated, the police officers can't cite under that matching municipal code section. So really the only basis why it's being asked to be passed as an emergency, that staff's recommending it, that's in part, it's apparently always been done that way, not that that's ever a good excuse, but also in part so that the code can be updated on the official website so everyone can see, okay, what does the official book say of all the legislation that council's passed in the last year, mixed with additionally, it's probably better sooner than later to update the criminal portions of the city's code such that in case something's, changed since the last update, we can capture that. Now, Mayor, to your point, the last time that's been updated has been, I think it was like in December of last year. So it is a true emergency? Absolutely not. Can we wait if you all want? Of course. The basis is just basically update the official book of the city's laws on the website with everything that's been passed over the last year, mixed with additionally capturing any updates in the criminal code and the ORC into our municipal code so our officers can cite under that to municipal court and get those fees.
So I would like to request that we see number 5, ordinance number O 2022-71 as a second reading emergency at the following meeting.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
So that there's enough time to read that document.
And I appreciate your reasoning for the emergency legislation. That would have been a lot more beneficial in a concise way than the emergency action is requested, so updates can become effective immediately, which is not helpful to council.
Noted. We can fix that moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah.
You sounded really smart there, Ben. So
Just say noted. Noted.
Noted.
Do we need to make any action then?
Yeah, I would just, because item number 5 is on the agenda proposed for passage is a first reading emergency, I would just move to modify the agenda to make item number 5 a 2 reading emergency for presentation at the second reading to occur at the next meeting.
And I have a.
Yeah, I thought I made that
moved
motion.
And Mr. Farrell
To
seconded.
make sure we were formalized on it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
You can please call the roll.
Mr. Muerspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with item number 1, which is ordinance number O 2022-68, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to a contract with Eclair Technologies LLC for the purchase of software and replacement equipment for the automated meter reading system and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, this was our automated readers that we've received a 15% increase from our contract, which amounts to $171,360 increase, and the funds are appropriated for in the water and sewer capital for 2022.
Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Genku, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Second item is ordinance number O 2022-69, an ordinance amending the pay and benefits ordinance, ordinance number O 2021-105, and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Council, this was the request for a 5% increase for all non-union employees hired prior to 2018.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Genku, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Third item is ordinance number O 2022-70, an ordinance amending the pay and benefits ordinance, ordinance number O 2021-106, and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Council, this is the 5% employee, or 5% increase for employees hired after 2018.
Any comments or questions?
Just happy they're doing it. I think it's awesome for the staff. They deserve it.
Great. Ms. Genku, please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Fourth item is Resolution R 2022-31, a resolution establishing the One Ohio Opioid Settlement Fund and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
This is to set up our fund to send our part of the opioid settlement, which was $50,355.63. So what I will do is we will set up a group in the city made up of like the health department, the courts, police department, fire department that's been affected by the opioid epidemic and determine how best to spend that money.
Great. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Genku, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Fifth item is ordinance number O 2022-71, an ordinance enacting and adopting the 2022 supplement, which is S-14, to the codified ordinance of the city of Middletown is amended. This is a first reading, which will be presented as an emergency for passage at the September 6th, 2022 meeting.
Chief, did you want to
And this is for the edits and the updates of our codified ordinances.
So I would just request that all of council receive the document. Just, I know legal sent it back to me, and I tried to review it all as quickly as possible for the meeting. But I also am curious about Chapter 832 that has Middletown business regulation and taxation. I know legal said the section is being added, but there's no further information. I was curious what it includes. I think she said some of the pages were missing, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can speak to that issue. I will speak to that issue more definitively at the next meeting. I wasn't prepared for that, honestly, tonight. But just to set the stage for next meeting on that as well, do know that the 200 and whatever that is, 64 pages, that is your current length of your codified ordinances. The 264 pages, what that document is that's online, is really a red line between the old and what's new.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as if everything that's in there is new stuff. Not
Right,
worth
but it was
reading.
highlighted, the section was highlighted, which I think in the rest of the document means that there's change, and then there was nothing to follow.
And
so that's why-
I'll speak to that issue
Okay.
per your request better at the next meeting if that's okay by you.
Sure.
For sure. But I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that's your official book of all of your legislation of citywide application. So it's really the red lines. It should incorporate, in essence, what I had said before, anything you already passed mixed with anything that's new in the criminal ORC sections. That's what should be before you.
But one
As
of
if
them-
there's a missing section, I'll figure
Yeah.
that out.
And then, well, another one that doesn't seem like it was criminal, but it's a topic that I don't remember us talking about. It was this, it was 402.53, 416.13, 416.14 about vehicle, I don't know, it made me think of golf carts and ATVs being driven on streets, and I don't remember anyone ever talking about that, nor do I think it's maybe in the criminal code necessarily.
So just to orient you generally, I printed out the first 25 pages of that. So I didn't get into the nitty gritty of each of these, but just when council goes through reviewing it later, at any of the sections that are updated, what's going to be important for you to look at, and I'll speak to it more definitively when we get there, is you'll see in some of the sections, at the very bottom of it should give you the legislation that's on that, such as, like on that, there's on page 36 of it, there's a subsection that deals with cooperative purchasing programs. If you go then down into the very bottom of it, it's that parenthetical that has a whole bunch of numbers and letters. Like it'll say Ordinance 097-129 passed 11/18/1997. That's when that was first passed. And then if you follow it, every time it's amended, it will give the date and the ordinance number by which council did that. So if it's not in the criminal code, it should have a corresponding section that says, hey, wait a minute, council did this on X date by this ordinance, and we should be able to track it to there. So if there's a section, Mayor, to your point, that seems to be neither criminal nor has a legislative history parenthetical at the end of it, we need to talk about that, because that's the intent of what this codification should do.
Okay, I'll try to dig into that one more to see.
Yeah, happy to, online, offline, whichever you need.
And I'll send the whole packet out to everyone when this meeting's
Thank you.
over.
And I know, council has changed over time, and I think this one just is a little more interested in the details. And so when it comes to stuff like this, as well as like contracts and whatnot, I like to see the details. It gives me a warm fuzzy.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Instead of the trust me, approve it kind of thing.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Appreciate
we can do that. All right. So unless there's anything else, would you like me to move on to item 6?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Ordinance number 6 is 2022-72, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Board of Education of the Middletown City School District for expansion and renovation of the Robert Sunnyhill Jr. Community Center and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
These next two pieces of legislation deal with the Sunny Hill Community Center expansion. The expansion will be for new classroom space, renovation and upgrades to other portions of the facility. It will enhance program delivery, and it'll benefit the community through various programs for child care and other educational aspects. The city will be the primary manager of the project. They'll also be the holder of all the contracts that are related to it. The funds that'll be used will be what the city has previously committed to the project through our ARPA funds, which was $2.1 million. The Middletown City School District ARPA funds, which I believe $4 million, and the county ARPA funds, which ended up being just over $1 million, I believe. Yes. Yeah, over $1 billion. So the part of the legislation here is to agree to the contract with the school. The school boards voted yesterday, and the school board voted 4-1 to approve the contract. So we are asking council tonight in an emergency fashion to pass this measure so that we can further get the project going, to commence on the work and allow for timing with the subsequent bidding and the construction portion of the project.
Just a question for staff. Have we received the subrecipient agreement and the funds from the county yet, or is that still in process?
It's still in process, correct? Yes. Yeah.
I know Paul, I already had asked you this question on the side, but I just wanted to kind of have it in the public forum too. I know one of the biggest questions and discussions at the beginning of this whole conversation about updating, upgrading, enhancing the community center was its sustainability. And just looking at the contract, and I see the schools have agreed to do some of the programming. Just can you speak to like the sustainability of the increased staffing and costs of maintenance and associated things.
The city ourselves, we don't see really any real increase in labor cost or programming cost. It's almost more like a cosmetic or a larger facility that we will still be involved in and use the funds we've used in the past. There may be a little bit of maintenance and utility increase because of the larger size, the larger square footage of the building. However, this building will be a lot more efficient, so we may not see too much of an increase in that due to the efficiency of your modern day HVAC systems and construction, windows, et cetera, as opposed to what's there now.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I would just say that I'm a big research person, so I looked across the country and across Ohio and what a lot of cities have spent ARPA funds on, and community centers across the state especially are one of the major investments cities have made. So I think we're falling in line with what other cities are trying to do to provide and give back to their citizens with these one-time funds. So I'm proud that we're able to make this decision.
And I'm also grateful for the partnership with schools. I think it's an exciting thing, and we don't get to do that as often as we
Absolutely. And one of the
should.
pillars of our comprehensive plan is increasing pride in our community, and this is one of those steps we're taking for that.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. King? Oops. Mr. Moon had the second.
That's who I
After Ms.
couldn't-
Ninny had the first. Yeah.
I got Miss Ninny, but I didn't hear who said the second. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for the roll when you are.
All right, Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes. Seventh item is ordinance number O 2022-73, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Brandstetter Carroll Inc. for engineering and design services for expansion and renovation of the Robert Sonny Hill Jr. Community Center and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Once again, council, this is with the Sonny Hill Community Center, where we are asking you to approve an agreement with Brandstetter Carroll for the design of the community center expansion. The contract with Brandstetter Carroll for the engineering and architectural design is for the project. This firm was jointly selected by the city and the Middletown City School District through the RFP process. This final step is necessary to allow the design work to begin. And as I stated earlier, the city will be the holder of the contract with Brandstetter Carroll, and the city school district will share in the costs in accordance with the cooperative agreement. So as far as the financial impact, our payment towards this will come from our ARPA fund, and once the final plans are completed, council will be asked to appropriate the remainder of our ARPA funds for the rest of the project to be completed.
I should have asked this earlier, so if you don't have the answer, I understand. But I didn't see in this one the results of the RFP and anyone else who submitted bids. Or is anybody aware of?
Yeah, Mayor, off the top of my hand, I can't remember. We had one other firm that responded to the RFP process. It was deemed to be somewhat non-responsive. It wasn't exactly what the city had requested. It was some limited, in terms of the scope of services requested, it was very limited to almost just be a project manager and not providing the design services. But we can get you that off.
Both the city and the school district felt that way.
I'll second. I was in on that, and it was not close to what the other one was, for lack of a better term.
Any comments or questions?
I just appreciated seeing all of the different options that were laid forward, and the selection process of how they chose the expansion as opposed to a full build, and all of the price tags that went along with all of the different options. I appreciated seeing that from Brandstetter, and look forward to seeing what they're able to do.
Just to that comment, just to temper it a little bit, I think some of those were merely these are things that could be options, so that we could know as far as a budget. But, you know, that we still needed to go through all the community visioning, which we just completed this last week. So there's still a lot more to go into that. So I don't think anybody should take that as this is the finished product. So still a lot more work to be done.
There is, and it's probably one of the largest groups I've ever seen had to work on a project like this. It's kind of hard sometimes to get consensus with a large group, so we do have a lot more work to be done on this.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Item number 8 is resolution number R 2022-32, a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property from Town Mall Galleria LLC in God's Love is Eternal LLC and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Council, this resolution is authorizing us specifically for the payment of the earnest money for the purchase of the real property of the Town Mall Galleria. The total purchase price of this town mall will be $16 million. This specific legislation request is for a resolution authorizing 2 earnest money deposits of $500,000 each that will go towards the purchase of the town mall properties. The council will be asked to approve the remaining $15 million of the purchase prior to the closing, which should be around June of 2023.
And that will be paid out of TIF funds. That's the plan. Not the million, but the purchase, the 15.
So currently, right now, the earnest money will be coming out of the general fund for this point. The plan is ultimately, Mr. Moon, for there to be a new TIF established to reimburse the general fund and also a subsequent related debt issuance towards closing.
The way I see this is really the next evolution of the project. I think it was inevitable that we were going to get to some point along the way where something like this was the next step. I'm excited. The partnership with Warren County is incredibly strong, and the fact that they are backing this project and with us on this journey means a lot, and it gives me a lot more confidence in the project as well, because they are definitely a good fiscal agent of taxpayer funds. And so combining our efforts together with them is really important to me. I know this is a unique, very unique destination location that we have the opportunity to create here in Middletown. It is one of a kind, and it's something that I think we're going to put ourselves even more on the map than we are now as a city across the country. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it seems like everybody on the interstate has passed us by over the years, and we have to stop that. Because right now, people leave Middletown, they go to Liberty Center, they go to Springboro to eat, they go to Monroe, wherever they go, and they're not staying here to hang out, eat, do whatever. So this is huge, and I think it's something we've needed for a long time. That mall has sat there for years, and we need to do something with it. So I think it's a great job by staff getting this done.
Yeah, and my comment would just be that, acquiring this property is a necessary step to get to the end vision that we've been talking about for 2 years. The vision has not really changed, and this is a step to get there. We got tons of hurdles between now and June that we got to get across, but this is a huge day to see that vision come to fruition. I do want to thank both current and past staff and council. This has been 2 years plus in the making. We wouldn't be there without a lot of hard work from everybody here tonight, as well as the folks that were here in the past. Also don't want to leave out our partners in Warren County, CCP, the private development side. This has really been an all-hands-on-deck type of discussion for many, many, many months. So thank you to everybody involved. Couldn't be more excited about this.
Well, it's really what the future of Middletown is going to look like for the next 20 years.
Way longer.
Yeah. Tal, I think you really hit on everything, and I think also to piggyback on that, you really were the senior council member who was able to sort of take that initial momentum and try to help us work through some of the some of the hurdles along the way. And I appreciate all of your hard work on getting us to where we are today, because in addition to staff and everybody else who worked on this, site control is really what's going to push this project forward and allow it to happen. So I think that's really what we're enabling today is that forward momentum.
Just as a point of clarification, I hope it's in the next 5 years, because in 20 years I'll be 81 years old. I won't be on skates.
Come on, it's still your first year.
Yeah.
Well, and something else I'll say is I know we had the RFQs close out a couple weeks ago for all the downtown properties and essentially all of our properties that the city owns right now. And we had so many more bids come in than I thought we would get. And it's truly amazing that for all these years, I think people have sat around here in Middletown and said, you know, we're not worth it, we're not good enough. But as soon as we opened up the doors to people, they started coming in. And that's it's amazing. So it's just really exciting that we finally, I feel like, have that forward mindset of let's open up the doors, we're open for business. I feel like it's reality now, so it's exciting.
I will say I still worry about 3 sheets of ice. It is still a concern of mine, of course, and my biggest thing that I stay up at night about on this project is to make sure that our citizens aren't footing that bill long term over time. So I want to celebrate, but I also want you guys to know that we have that at the forefront of our minds, and our fiscal responsibility to you is absolutely critical. So
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question? And I don't know if you'll know the answer to this. Who operates the sign, the electronic sign by Bob Evans? Is that
you get
city
10
ran?
emails a day about it like I do? Yeah.
Do you have any idea, Paul?
Yeah. Missy, I think has.
I think Missy,
Yeah.
you do.
Wait a minute. He just wants access to it to put stuff up there. You can't do that, Zach.
Yeah, billboards. Well, I just so obviously it's an issue here, but I had 2 friends in town from Chicago this weekend. And I'm going on and on about how we're revamping our mall and we're going to change the front door in Middletown, that kind of thing. Then you roll up there, and then what's the advertisement say? Heroin Hope Line, or heroin, whatever it is, for help. And it's like we're doing all this work to improve.
Let me check on it. I think I know who, but I don't want to be wrong, so I'm going to hold off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get you an answer.
A little frustrating.
ASAP.
Okay.
That
It's
was a
not
very
me.
Good response. Better than mine. We need to vote on this, don't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice.
All right, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
While we're here.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
All right, the next item on the agenda, item 9, is ordinance number O-2022-41, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment rezoning 2 parcels located at 105 McKnight Drive and 3000 McGee Avenue from public and institutional PI district to planned development PD district, and approving a preliminary plan for the subject property. This is a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
I don't have anything else to add.
So, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to orientate all of us, ourselves, staff, council, the public as well, of what really is before you tonight. And really, you have 4 options. The public comment portion came and went. Additionally, there was obviously a citizen comment that happened tonight, but there's really 4 options for you to do. You know, obviously this is proposed for passage, but the first option, should council so choose to do so, is to vote no on the resolution. Doing so would effectively deny the application. If council, and of course, deny it if you want, if council is so inclined to approve it, based off the various iterations that the developer has submitted, I wanted to go over those 3 different options and also kind of explain the legislation that's pertaining to that, just so that hopefully council and likewise the public can know what is and what's not on the table. So obviously you have in your packet with you the involved legislation for that. We purposefully drafted that to be basically a form approval that would approve it as presented, with certain conditions that would apply to any of those approvals. Attached to that legislation is Exhibits B, C, and D, are the three different options that we believe are before council. Those are the three different actual preliminary development plans that developer submitted to council over the course of the public hearings on this. So really what we'll want you to do, and I'll go through each of those exhibits just in very highlight form, but really what we want you to do, if you're so inclined to approve some iteration of this, is to vote yes on the legislation, and then tell us which of those three options, exhibit B, C, or D, that you want to go with. Again, whatever you guys want is whatever we'll do. Just trying to frame it in a way to where it's all digestible and understandable. So just going over those first let me start with if you're so inclined to approve it, the general conditions that will apply no matter what, so that everyone will know that. That's in the legislation starting on section 2. So section 1 first approves the rezoning, and then also obviously approves the preliminary development plan. And then in section 2, that's where you can literally see it's plug and play. We hereby approve it as the attached exhibit A. Do you want to go with option 1, 2, or 3? And then after that, it says subject to these conditions. So no matter which way if it's to be approved, these are the conditions that staff and planning commission have recommended over the course of this that be incorporated into the final resolution. First condition would be that the applicant must request and receive final development plan approval in accordance with the city development code prior to developing the property. So there will still be a final development plan that's to be submitted and approved by planning commission. Second condition is that all homes constructed on the property would be subject to review and approval by the City of Middletown Architectural Review Board prior to the applicant's submittal of the final development plan for planning commission's approval. There's been a lot of questions over that of, hey, wait a minute, isn't this supposed to go to architectural review? When are they supposed to do that? How are they supposed to do that? The preliminary plan, subject to whatever additional detail the applicant provides and our council requires, is just that. It's a preliminary plan. Conceptually, pursuing a good planning process, the final development plan is where you're really supposed to show all those details. The point is, if council is willing to approve this, the general terms, the preliminary plan, next go to the architectural review board with your final plans, get their recommendation, and then you'll ultimately go to planning commission for their approval of that final development plan. So that's the second condition of any of the three options that would be incorporated. The third condition is that the construction plans must comply with the engineering manual of design, grading, stormwater, utilities, erosion control, traffic, etc. And then section 3, all plats, plans, applications, and data submitted by the applicant are hereby incorporated into this approval. So those are the general, I would call them, conditions that if council is so inclined to approve one of those three options would apply to any of them. Then next, I just wanted to hit the highlights of each of the different plans so that everyone can make sure that we know exactly what those options would be. So attached is Exhibit A to the legislation, and I know it's not up on this screen, but it was incorporated in the packet that's online as well, is just an overview of the property. So that's why your options don't start with Exhibit A. That's just a general overview of the property. Option 1 is Exhibit B. And what that encompasses is what Planning Commission recommended for approval for at a vote of 5-2. And that's for 50 single-family homes on 50-foot wide lots in a 75-foot buffer with a mound and trees with the following conditions. The homes backing up to Florence Street would be single-story, and the mound in the 75-foot buffer would be increased to the maximum size possible. So that's option 1, again, Exhibit B. The second option, which is Exhibit C, I'll go over the highlights of that as well. So on that, the site plan, that's what was presented to council on June 7th. It includes 52 single-family homes. Additionally, it would be in place of the 75-foot buffer. There are street-facing homes on Florence Street at 80-foot wide lots, possibility for some two-story homes, as we understand. The design, it's not a pass-through. It incorporates use of a cul-de-sac with only one way in and one way out. That would be off of Sherman. And then the interior lots would be 50 feet wide. So that's option 2, again, Exhibit C. And then Exhibit D, which is option 3, This is the site plan that was presented, to council on August 2nd. It includes 44 single-family homes. There are still street-facing homes on Flores Street on 80-foot wide lots. The design also includes street-facing homes on Sherman Avenue on 65-foot wide lots. The design likewise to option 2, which is Exhibit C. It doesn't incorporate a pass-through. It utilizes a cul-de-sac with only one way in and out on Sherman Avenue. And then the interior lots are 50 feet wide. It's also important to note, and that's what's included is the last legislative item on the agenda, dealing with waiver of the tap-in fees. That is, we've been, as we understand from the developer, they are only willing to do option 3, again, Exhibit D, if the city is willing to waive the tap-in fees. That would be approximately $3,500 tap-in per property, or a total of $308,000. So while that item is included as the last item on the agenda, that only pertains if council is so inclined to approve option 3, if that makes sense. So with that said, it's you guys are the bosses. If you're so inclined, we think the time is now to pick. Do you want to approve it or do you want to deny it? And if you do want to approve it, which of those 3 options do you want to go for? With that, it's time for public deliberation on that. This is where council obviously can say what they want to. It's obviously not the time for the public to kind of give additional comment on that. And it's now time for you guys to hopefully decide if you're so inclined.
Well, I'll go ahead and start, sure. Obviously, this has been a long process on this one. In reviewing how this played out, I think, initially when the property owner came to the city and said, hey, we want to help the community, here's our proposal of a park or green space, what do you think? And the city came back and said, put lots of homes in, go forth. And I feel like that was the start of where this kind of went off the rails. I think, from what I can tell, the city could have helped more with that process. I think I can't blame the property owner for going to the largest developer in America. The property owner is not a developer and doesn't know the industry. But when formulating my decision, I keep coming back to the review criteria, right, which is what we should be doing. And I don't feel that the request sufficiently fulfills the review criteria. I think specifically not being detrimental to the present and potential surrounding uses and needing to have a beneficial effect, which couldn't be achieved as well with other zoning districts. I don't feel that it fulfills that. I believe it could have a place elsewhere. But I believe there's a better option that would have a beneficial effect to the surrounding areas. It would benefit the property owner, and it would improve our city. How do we get there? I think we need to help the property owner. I think it's not fair that we've expected them to carry this project solely on their shoulders as much as we have. And I think if it doesn't pass this evening, I know we can and we will help the property owner find the right fit. It's not an option for this land to remain vacant in my mind. So if people are thinking that, I wouldn't be hanging your hats on that one. I think there's some great purpose. I think the land has a calling for something incredible that the church will do. It will improve the church, the neighborhood, the city, and also give homage to the property's historic past. So Middletown deserves the best. We've been talking about that. I won't settle for projects that I don't think sufficiently satisfy the review criteria, so I don't feel this project does, and that's my plan is to vote no this evening on it.
I guess I'll follow, since I made the motion to approve. The mayor touched on the review criteria of detriment versus benefit, and I guess I have a hard time seeing how 44 new families in Middletown could be detrimental to Middletown. And we may agree to disagree about that, the neighbors there and myself, but like you, I'm a lifelong resident of Middletown, and I grew up in that neighborhood. My parents still live up on Eaton Drive, and And I remember the days of the hospital. I remember what my neighborhood was like when the hospital was there. I was recalling to someone recently that I almost always remember there being a crane on that site because they were always under some kind of construction. When it wasn't the crane that I remember, it was all of the care flights that came in and out. Being on Eaton Drive, we were up on the top of the hill, and the emergency vehicles and the care flights would happen all night long, through all hours. They would come low over our house and land on that platform. I think it was mentioned today about the views from the top of the hill, and I remember the views. I remember the views from the top of the parking garage because that was really the only view up there. We'd go up there on the top of the parking garage and we'd watch the fireworks and things from up there. But that site, as I remember it, is not the same site that exists there today. The neighborhood is similar, but it's also a lot older and it's a lot more aged. And while we do have a historic neighborhood that butts up to an older neighborhood, this site is not, for me, part of the historic district. It's not zoned that way. And so to speak of zoning, I go to our master plan, one of the very first documents that I read when I joined council, and the recommendations and suggestions from city planners about how to use that site. And it, in my mind and in my study, was always residential. That was confirmed when we conducted the comprehensive plan update, which also indicated that that site was highest and best used residential. So in those ways, it checks those boxes. It's my understanding that the private property owner who owns that property chose the developer that they wanted to develop that site and who they wanted to strike an agreement with. And all I've seen from both the property owner and the developer thus far has been a willingness to look at the site and relook at the site and try to come up with a compromise that would not be in any way detrimental to that neighborhood. They've worked to try to create a plan that could be cohesive and could create a transition from those historic homes to the less historic homes on Orchard with lot sizes that were similar. And in considering the lot sizes, I was playing golf at Shaker Run lately, and I saw all of the development there and the types of homes that were being built in Shaker, all hardy board, big houses on small lots. And so recently I was on Zillow and was looking through the Zillow site to find a particular home I was looking for and did a reverse search for the map over Middletown from highest value homes for sale listed first. And every single home in the anywhere from 250 to 450 range was an image of a model home that this is your option for a home in that price range. And so those things were kind of telling to me. I've heard some comments about the building materials and those sort of things, and I think that the architecture review requirement sort of speaks to that. So when it gets to architecture review, that's when we get to decide what we will require when it comes to materials and styles and options for these homes. I don't think that this is the last stop on the journey for this planned development. And so with the recommendation of staff and planning commission, and having heard all of the things that I've heard from both sides, this is a project that, as option C, as the compromised best plan presented, is something that I would be willing to approve today.
I guess I'll go. So this has been the one decision I've had to make so far that I went to bed last night and I was not sure of the answer, which is not a great feeling. So I really took the day to I called people all day long. ask their opinions, those types of things. What I go back to is when I ran, my running tag per se was a vision of hope driven by dreams. So vision can be anything, but I ran to not just vote on something, but to truly try to bring something great here, because I believe that there is greatness here. And new homes are great, but I look at, what do we do today? We're buying the town mall. I look at these RFQs of what downtown can be. I see all the opportunity the city has to offer. And so for that, although I'm still torn, to be honest, I think that site, I think it can do better, honestly. I think it can. So that's all I have to say.
Well, great points. I mean, they brought up some points that that I would have made, but first of all, I hope I don't offend anybody here, but I have zero sentimental value for that site. And so that doesn't play in. I mean, I grew up at Hill and Crawford in a 2-bedroom apartment, so that site doesn't mean anything to me as far as sentimental value, so take that out of the equation. I went back, this is probably over the last month, and I rewound and I watched a lot of the council meetings about this particular thing that was brought up, what was said, and I started researching, and I sat down, I had coffee with the Oaks pastor at Java Johnny's, and we talked. I've talked to the Historic Commission, who's been a part of that from the other side. I've talked to the neighbors. I've been emailing back and forth, and it's just such an emotional topic. And when you bring emotions into something like that, you say things or you do things, because I do it a lot, that you regret later. You know, and you have to take the emotions out of it. I got an email just this week from, a Facebook message this week from somebody who's lived in the town for a few years, and basically said, if you guys don't vote for this, you don't care about the future of the children of the city and all that. So you have to take those emotions out, no matter what. I listened to both sides of it. Dustin Hurley, is he still here? He makes great points. He's a great attorney, and it shows in this conversation of what he says. This is not our call of what they build there. We do need housing here. There's no question. And if we don't put that in, what will be there? And if not this, what will be there? But when you look at the grand scheme of things, and I could be wrong, but when you look at a zoning change is like changing the law or a rule. There's a reason we have to vote on it as a council. When you change zoning, does it make not just the city better, but does it make that neighborhood better, or does it negate from it? Ms. Ninny makes a great point about the houses over in Shaker, and I can't argue with that. You're right. As a realtor, I see it. I think my only argument with that would be, Monica, was the fact is those aren't in an established neighborhood. Those are in, it'd be like if we built something like that out by the town mall, or the atrium. It was tough, and you look at this and what's best for Middletown. No matter what we decide, it's not going to go over well with some people. It's just not. But we didn't get elected these positions to make friends. We made it to make our city better. And with that being said, I'm going to vote no on it. I just don't think this is the right thing.
Can I also say that I have no problem with D.R. Horton as a builder. I've seen and I've sold their houses. I just don't think it's right for the site, and I could be wrong, but I would work with them in other areas of Middletown.
I guess my question is, if you guys don't think that this is the right thing for this site, then what is the right thing for this site?
So for me personally, I think, to Rodney's point actually, if you look at newer construction, these types of homes that are built, traditionally Sawyer's Mill, for example, Renaissance, it's an extension of what already, I don't know if this makes sense.
Sawyer's Mill was built on a cornfield too, so.
But there's
nothing around that. It was built next to Manchester Park, which is the whole annexation of that per se. This is coming into an established neighborhood that's surrounded by homes that are already there. I do believe development exists there, but I do think it needs to match what's there a little bit more. And I think we do need to work, to your point, with the owner to figure out, like I've already talked to Dever, how can we try to, can we schedule with the State Historic Preservation Office? What can we do to make that lot more attractive, and can we try to get it to make more financial sense? Because there is a buyer pool of $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 buyers in Middletown. I know because I work with them, and I know, and there's a lack of supply of that. So I do think those people exist. There's not as much, but again, we don't. If the price point is higher, we don't have to sell 40, 50 of them.
So you're saying still residential, but individual lots with individual builders in the 600 range? Is that what you're saying would be the appropriate product here? I'm just trying to figure out, because
I'm saying that there is a need
the
for
owner
that.
of the property has worked really hard to try to provide us with a product that is a compromise. And I guess I just feel like we've expended so many hours of our staff and their time and our time and all of the resources that we have available here. And we're talking about, well, we want something else, but we're not really being very clear to the property owner about what exactly it is that we would accept there. I mean, I'm talking through this because I
have a lot of
really had a
ideas
chance
I'd be happy to talk with them about. I want to focus on this one because this is the one in front of us. I see to your point.
Absolutely. But I mean, how can we have a conversation about not approving this and not also have a conversation about what we would approve? Because the property owner has fulfilled all of their obligations to the city. The city has been working really hard. I just don't want to.
Monica, with all due respect, to me, what city staff and planning commission, and no offense to city staff, their view is irrelevant compared to the neighbors, the people that live there. The people that live there, they're there. They pay their taxes, they live there. And I love our city staff, but what the people in that community think is more important than what city staff thinks. And I was on city staff for 30 years. So that's my point. We have to listen to the people, and that's what I took it from. As far as what we should put there, I don't know. It's zoned for certain things now. And so the caveat to that is if it doesn't pass and they put in something there that we're not happy with, we might have to eat that, and I get that. But to me, when I reach out and it's not the squeaky wheel gets the grease, it's the people I've talked to, 90% of the people I've talked to in the city are not for this for a reason. You're taking a neighborhood of houses, regardless of what it's built of, hardy board, vinyl, whatever, and you're putting it in an established neighborhood in the middle of that, and you're changing that neighborhood. And I know there was a hospital there, but that was a long time ago. And I think that's why we have 5 people on council to eat. We have different perspectives, and we all talk to different people. But to me, what Middletown wants as far as a community is more important than anything, than what we want or what anybody else wants. I'm not saying I'm right, that's just my opinion.
And I also want to say, I respect and value your stance because it's important that we represent everyone. So having that is to me, it's not an argumentative point. I think residential could absolutely go there. I think there is an incredible residential use there that's maybe not just a few homes, but maybe a lot more than that the church can also make a lot of money on, but I just don't think this is the one.
Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that we're talking about putting in like complexes of residences, like, oh, okay, let's put in an apartment complex. Let's put in even more residences, or, and I'm just, if I were the property owner here asking for a zoning change, I would be very confused about how we got to where we are. I'm just, I think that's my biggest hang up on it, because we
somebody asked them to come back with another approval. Another one. We keep dragging it out, then that's how we've gotten here. I mean, really. I mean, it sounds like people are ready to vote. I don't want to draw this out into an argument, which we don't need to have. But if you do have, if people want to have more conversation, I'm happy to facilitate it. I think there's great conversations to have with the owner, and I think we can have those, and I want to support them 1,000,000%. And I think this property really does have an incredible use in our city, and it's very valuable, and I want to help them with that future use, whatever that might be. Ms. Skanku, please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Abstain.
Mr. Muterspaw.
No.
Mayor Condrey.
No.
Mr. Farrell.
No.
Thank you. And with that, I would request a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 13, ordinance number O 2022-76, since that pertains to tap-in fees that aren't going to be necessitated.
I'll make a motion to remove ordinance 022-76 from the agenda.
Second.
Ms. Skanku, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon.
Abstain.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is item number 10, ordinance number O 2022-74, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Provision for the purchase of in-cruiser camera systems for the Division of Police and declaring an emergency. No action is requested until the September 6th meeting.
So move for adopt. Oh, no action requested. Sorry, we get on this roll.
Council, we're requesting approval of a second reading emergencies for a 5-year contract with Provision for the 10 camera systems for the 10 new police cruisers that are coming in.
Would this normally come from the police budget? Pardon my, sorry, Chief.
No, I think this has always come
Is
from.
it always from,
these
so it's out of auto gas, computer
Yeah,
replacement,
it comes,
and the
always
general
comes from
fund?
the general fund from the garage. We put money into the garage fund. Unfortunately, we have 2 or 3 different camera systems right now. So we want to get with Provision, and we just put in for a body camera grant, and we would also go with Provision, so that way we'd have the same system through all the cruisers and the body cameras.
So it's not coming out of the garage fund?
That's
It's coming out of the auto tax fund.
Yeah, the auto
And the
tax
general
Computer
fund, too.
replacement funds
Yeah.
for those specified amounts.
Okay. I just don't remember going to the general fund for this stuff typically, but maybe my memory is.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that fully, but it's my understanding that these funds are where they've come out of in the past.
Okay.
From
They're
finance.
it's needed. I'm not, I just am asking about where. Okay.
Ready to move on? Hearing no objections, we'll go to item 11, which is resolution number R 2022-33, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2022, pertains to the general fund. There was all this stuff. Never seen the building. She's
Good.
Okay, we're back on. Okay, we'll call this back to order. The only thing you missed, citizens, where I had some crackers over here from the snack bin. So that's about it. All right, thank you guys very much for getting that back up and running so quickly, IT. All right, we are back and
Sure. I was in the midst of reading item number 11, so I'll just go ahead and start over on that. Item 11 is resolution number R 2022-33, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2022. This pertains to general fund fire, and it's a first reading. I think this is where we basically departed, if memory serves me correct, when the lights went out.
great.
Okay, so council, the fire department received a grant from the from Duke Energy Foundation for a total of $7,500 with plans to purchase a new turnout gear washer extractor to clean firefighter gear. The total cost of the extractor is $16,000. $16,629, and we had budgeted for money in our the major equipment, correct? Yeah, in the major equipment fund to cover the remaining $9,129,000. So the request will be to appropriate those funds to purchase the extractor.
Any comments or questions?
All right. Item number 12, ordinance number O 2022-75, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Thermal Process Systems for the purchase of an APT 54-20 cast complete pump for the water reclamation facility. Again, a first reading.
Council, we've had the breakdown of one of the pumps in the water reclamation facility. There's a total of 5 pumps. Tried to send it out for repair, however, it is irreparable. So due to the fact that the 4 pumps are working hard to keep up with the capacity, Public Works got 3 bids instead of going out to RFP because of the expediency of which we need this pump replaced. We're going with the bid from we're going with the estimate from the Thermal Process Systems for $39,1600 or $39,016. Excuse me.
No questions? Okay, that brings us to new business at this point. I had one item, just watching tonight's agenda play out. If we know that there's going to be a matter that has a lot of citizen interest, if we're able to move it sooner in the legislation, that might help our citizens so they're not having to sit through the whole meeting. I know we typically kind of do it in the order that it was presented previously, but is there any reason why we couldn't move it sooner in the agenda? I know we're all over the map on this one particularly, but.
So tonight's agenda, the order was based on that we tried to get the pinning ceremony moved up.
Yeah, for
Those people
sure.
didn't have to sit. And then our agenda order is typically emergencies, second readings, first readings. But in hindsight, yes, I could have, and in hindsight, I should have moved.
I'm not
anyone.
saying this is any one particular person's thing. I'm just thinking as a whole, are we, like, as council and staff, okay with us considering moving those sooner into the meeting?
Well, and you can also do like a motion to handle items on the agenda out of order.
Oh,
And say,
okay.
I would just like to go straight to item number, for instance, 9. Can we do that out of order? And then you
Lovely.
could do it and then jump back into your agenda.
Perfect.
Yeah, but just as a rule of thumb, that's how we order the agenda is emergencies,
Right.
second readings, and then first readings.
Okay.
And I appreciate the desire to move those items up, but I do also appreciate seeing our residents getting to, I guess, see all of the other things that we do, all of the other things that we vote on, and all of the other things that staff work hard on. Sometimes an item is at the end, and they get to participate in a full council meeting. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, they do have the chance to do that regardless.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay. It's good to know. I didn't even consider doing that. So, any other new business items? Okay. Then we have a request to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Do we have a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Meterspaugh?
No.
We must be on a different page about what this is about. Okay.
I think so.
I think there's a, anyway, regardless. So we will adjourn this meeting until, well, we'll come back at open session, officially close it out, but then our next council meeting will be September 6th. Wait, do we have one? No, we have something. We did request a special meeting in the interim for Wednesday, August 24th at 9 a.m.
Yes.
To discuss ARPA funds and the fire station
Update. Yep.
update. So that will be a public meeting, and then we will have our regularly scheduled meeting September 6th at 5 p.m.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.
David.